All right, what's going on, Detroit Lions fans? My name is Derek, and welcome to the Gridiron Blitz. I am wearing my Lions polo right now because I don't have my merchandise. It has yet to come, but I feel like that I am I'm like the fans GM. I am like that fan voice that everyone is too afraid to speak about. You have to use to speak. You have the Mike Valentis. You have of the Detroit radio scene. And then you've got us YouTubers, who try to talk about this team on a more relatable level. I don't have press credentials. I don't have box seats. I don't have any of that stuff. I'm a fan who watches the game, who pays money to see the team. You have the media who gets paid to talk about the team, and you have the fans who have to pay to see the team. So I am going to use my fans' perspective and talk about this team. As I stated last week in my video, which turned out to be a colossal success, maybe people were just feeling what I was saying at that time. I'm going to do this on a weekly basis. I'm not sure what the show is going to be called. I'm not sure how this thing is going to go, but we're going to talk about this team. We're going to do it on a weekly basis. I just got a tweet. So let's talk about this team. Comes out now that it's a couple things I want to talk about. Let me just make something clear because I wanted to make a video about this, but I'll talk more about it now. The first thing we're going to start with is the head coaching situation for the Detroit Lions. There is a strong possibility that Robert Sala will be the head coach of the New York Jets. He just had a second interview today, and now he's the leading candidate to get that job. Looks like that's where he'll be going. A lot of Lions fans are kind of having a fit. See, that's one of our problems. We put our eggs in one basket. And it looks like that guy is going to go to the New York Jets. So he won't be coming here. Now, there are a few front runners. One I heard that I wasn't very too happy about was Marvin Lewis. I have an issue with Marvin Lewis. To a lot of Detroit Lions fans, this is going to come as they're going to feel some type of way, but I really don't care. If Marvin Lewis is hired as the Detroit Lions head coach, I will no longer watch this team. I will no longer support this team. He could turn around and be the guy. At that point, for me, it doesn't matter. If they win, so what? Good. It's about time. If Marvin Lewis winds up being the guy to take us not only to the promised land, but over the hump and win the Super Bowl, then awesome. But in the meantime, I'm not going to support this hire. You might be saying, well, Greer, why do you say that? I say that because the Detroit Lions have a history of bad decision-making. One of those bad decisions was to fire Coach Caldwell. You fire Coach Caldwell and you hire Matt Patricia. Let's talk about real quick. Let's go back and talk about just what a nightmare Bob Quinn was for this team. Bob Quinn had no idea what he was doing. A lot of people wanted to believe in Bob Quinn. I made a video. I said I might not trust him with this franchise, but I respected him. Why did I respect him? Because at least he was able to put 9-7 wasn't good enough. He was able to put a number there, but he used that as a scapegoat or a way to fire Jim Caldwell, who was never his guy. So if you compare Jim Caldwell to Marvin Lewis, they have some resemblance in that for the Detroit Lions and for their respective teams, they couldn't take them over the hump. They couldn't beat the good teams. Marvin Lewis, while he has a decent record in the regular season, is 0-7 in the playoffs. I just can't get behind that. I can't get behind firing a guy who couldn't take you there, and then you're going to hire a guy who pretty much does the same thing. To me, that doesn't make any sense. And for me, it shows I've always felt that this organization is about one thing: the almighty dollar. This team wants, they care about money. When it comes to their vehicles, same way. If you work for Ford, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's well known. Okay. So my situation, my issue with this team is that You fire a guy who is not the guy because he can't win and beat the good teams. You let the GM destroy this organization before hiring Matt Patricia. See, if you look back at Bob Quinn's draft, look at the cap purgatory that this team is in. That was because of Matt Patricia. Now, there was a rumor earlier, a couple months ago, I made a video about that as well, that Jeff Okudah was Bob Quinn's guy while Matt Patricia wanted Derrick Brown. And I'm wondering, we haven't heard anything about Bob Quinn or Matt Patricia. I wonder if they even still talk, because that could have been a situation where, hey, it was Bob Quinn's way. It was Bob Quinn's way. Now, Matt Patricia, we're hearing a lot of things about him that are less than savory. But at the same time, I feel like that Bob Quinn could have tied his hands just a wee bit. Because if you reflect back on, we got the Kenny Gallaudays, we got the Taylor Deckers, we got the Frank Ragnars, we also have the Brad Kaya, the Jake Ruddock, the Tease Tabers. We got a lot of misses on this team. Bob Quinn is the one that made these decisions while giving carte blanche, from the organization, the Fords. That brings me to my next point. Mr. All Reliable, Matthew Stafford. Now, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk on whether or not Matthew Stafford will be a Detroit Lion. Me personally, here's how I feel about that situation. We have 5 draft picks in this upcoming draft. Matthew Stafford, even at 32, 12 years in the league going into his 13th, is the only viable draft capital that we have. Now, we may be able to get rid of Kerryon Johnson, but he's not going to get us much of anything. Maybe a 5th round pick, maybe. Matthew Stafford is the only bargaining tool that we have. And we are kind of in a situation where we're stuck with him. That was also done by Bob Quinn. See, a few years ago, Matthew Stafford became the highest paid player in the league, signing, I think it was a 5-year extension, something like that. And he's on the back end of that deal now. The cap hit for Matthew Stafford is significant this year and next year. If we trade Matthew Stafford, then we are not going to have a quarterback who knows this team. I am all for drafting a quarterback with one of our 5 picks. See, I never liked the Jeff Okudah pick. I hated it. For me, it was Chase Young. That was it. If I can't get Chase Young, I'm taking, at this point, probably Herbert over Tua. And if I don't do that, I'm trading back. Does anybody, at this point, I'm throwing up my hands. I'm saying, does anybody want this pick? Because I don't want to take it. If you knew you were going to keep Matthew Stafford, you should have just tried to trade back. Now, we don't know. Could have been a possibility. So now we're kind of in a situation where, can we take a quarterback? We missed out on Tua. We missed out on Herbert. Now we have another pretty good quarterback here this year, top 10 picks that we can take with our number 7th overall pick. Not as good as the 3rd pick. Not as much as a guarantee. However, still a decent pick. We got TJ Hawkinson with the 8th pick 2 years ago. Had we had the 7th pick, we could have taken the defensive tackle that the Jaguars took. So now we're in a situation. Do we draft a quarterback? Do we draft somebody on defense? If Alabama's wide receiver is there, do we take him? We only have one wide receiver under contract who is coming out of his rookie year. This team is in a lot of trouble. Kenny Golladay, we're going to come back to Matthew Stafford. Kenny Golladay was practically begging for an extension all year long. When the season was over, he even stated that he would love to stay in Detroit. He's saying, here, Detroit, sign me. I want to stay here. We don't get that a lot. Now, you guys know me. I'm a huge Everson Griffin fan. At this point, Everson Griffin, I've got my taste of EG. He can stay. He can go. I don't care. Okay. He told the Minnesota Vikings, if you want me, come get me. All right. Kenny Golladay is saying, I want to stay on this team. Make it happen. Yet this organization doesn't do that. They didn't do that. Bob Quinn was probably responsible for that. So now we're approaching a year where we have an additional game. The schedule is a gauntlet. We have 10 playoff teams of our 16, 17 game season, whatever they decide to do. I have the Lions going 4-12. But to go back to Matthew Stafford has not demanded a trade. He has not made any noise. Now, I'm not a Stafford defender. I'm a Stafford admirer. I admire Matthew Stafford. See, there was something I saw during the weekend that made me really, truly respect some of the players that we had on this team. I'm going to get off topic for just a little bit here, but DK Metcalf, stud wide receiver. Lions could have had him as well, but that's not the point that I'm trying to make. DK Metcalf did something that I never once saw Calvin Johnson do. He had a diva moment, pitched a fit on the sideline because he was frustrated that he wasn't getting the ball. So in my opinion, whoever's comparing DK to Calvin, you got to ease up on that. You got to ease up on that. But the point that I'm trying to make to bring with Calvin Johnson, to bring back to Matthew Stafford and Barry Sanders, Matthew Stafford's not a complainer. He's not going to walk in there and demand a trade. Okay? I have a lot of respect for Deshaun Watson. And if what happened to me or Deshaun happened to me, I might have to make some noise as well. But that, to me, that's a different story. That's a different story. But even if that happened to Matthew Stafford, will Matthew Stafford make that kind of noise? Matthew Stafford did not do anything but sign the paper to extend his contract. The Ford organization, through Bob Quinn, extended Matthew Stafford, locked us in. Matthew Stafford is not making a lot of noise. He's either going to be the quarterback for the next couple of years or he's not. The Lions are either going to draft a quarterback to replace him or they're not. We don't have a lot to work with. Okay? Do we need a quarterback right now? We could use one for the future, but we don't need a quarterback right now. Even a hurt Matthew Stafford was not half bad during this season. The point that I'm trying to make is that Matthew Stafford is still on this team, has not once complained, has not once had a fit, and yet a lot of Lions fans want to blame him and the local talk radio show, want to direct all this negativity to Matthew Stafford when Matthew Stafford comes to play. Does he make bad decisions? He does. Are there better quarterbacks in the league? There are. But right now, he's the quarterback that we have, and he is not the problem for this organization. He's not the one that came up with the contract that he signed. That was all Bob Quinn. We have a quarterback that doesn't complain. He just wants to help this team win, who probably will be the next Dan Marino. Even worse, to walk away from the game with absolutely nothing. He'll have a ton of Lions records, but that's about it. If you have Aaron Rodgers saying, put some respect on Matthew Stafford's name, I think we should do the same. We can't keep putting everything on Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is not the reason the Lions have 5 draft picks. He's not the reason that the Lions are in cap purgatory. His general manager did that. We have to direct our focus on the true problem of this franchise, the owners. Now, Sheila Hamp Ford, she did something that I didn't expect her to do. She stayed true to her word of firing Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn if we were not in playoff contention. And she held true to that. I want to speak right now to those Detroit Lions fans that think that this team is going to be good next year. When you look at who the Lions faced, we saw that the Bears were a fraud. We already knew that, right? The Bears have been a fraud. When they were 6-1, we already knew. They had the worst showing in the playoffs. Even the Steelers, who went down early, got punched in the mouth. They wind up making it somewhat of a game toward the end. The Saints were trying to give the Bears the game, and they still couldn't make any moves. You know why? Because the Bears were fraudulent, never belonged there in the first place. The Detroit Lions beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have the first pick in the NFL draft. The Arizona Cardinals, who were frauds. Started off hot, didn't make the playoffs. They beat the Washington football team, who 7-9, didn't belong there either. They beat the Chicago Bears, and they beat another team as well. Escapes me at the moment. The Atlanta Falcons, who have a higher pick in the draft than the Lions. The Detroit Lions beat all the teams who really either were 500 or below. They annihilated the first pick in the draft, the team with the first pick in the draft. Those teams were fraudulent, so they made the Lions look better than they actually were. And that's what I'm trying to get to you guys. The Lions are going to be bad for a long time. We got to brace ourselves for it. Now let's bring it back to Robert Sala. According to a Twitter, Mike Garofalo, I think that's his name, Robert Sala is pretty much New York Jets or bust at this point, which means that the Lions won't get him. Now, me personally, I know a lot of you may not like this, I would take Darrell Bevell over Marvin Lewis. I don't want Marvin Lewis here. I bought this shirt, so I will burn it. If Marvin Lewis is hired, I would rather you rehire Jim Caldwell than to hire Marvin Lewis. It's just it. At this point in the juncture, we are we're SOL. One way or the other, we're SOL. Either way you want to take that, the Detroit Lions are SOL. And what you're going to see from me this year is these types of videos, because I've had enough with this franchise. I've had enough with watching players leave and walk away, great players. I've had enough of slamming a player in Matthew Stafford who has only done as much as his team could do. Tom Brady. Is Tom Brady a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford? That's up for debate. Tom Brady has 6 rings. Let's not forget about Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, the New England Patriot organization. Not the Matt Patricia Patriot way, the actual Patriot way. Quarterbacks need a surrounding cast. We've had Calvin Johnson. We had Javid Best for T-. Now we've got Swift. But Stafford's not a young pup anymore. He doesn't have a receiver at this point. He has Quintez Cephas. That is it. The first order of business after we hire a general manager and head coach is to retain Kenny Galladay's services. Maybe we pair him up with Devonta Smith. Maybe we do. I wouldn't be mad. They take a quarterback. Wouldn't be mad. Romeo, stud, 10 sacks. He is definitely the man on defense. But we have a long way to go, Lions fans, and a long time to get there. So for me, I need you guys to look and see the big picture. And that is not that Matthew Stafford is the problem. That is not trading away Matthew Stafford. I'll end by saying this. The last potential franchise quarterback that we had was Joey Twinkle Toes Harrington. What does he come out and say? No offensive line. he couldn't play the game that he wanted to play. If we draft, but more importantly, in my opinion, he didn't have anyone to mentor him. He was thrown into the lion's den, pun intended. Matthew Stafford had a very similar situation. We have a quarterback that not only is under contract, but is a pretty good quarterback who can mentor his successor, which is something that the Lions are known for doing. They give up on players much too early, right? Now, Matthew Stafford is not that guy, but we have a quarterback who can usher in the era of the new quarterback. Jordan Love, not even dressed. So now, after we hire the GM, and he in turn hires his head coach, after we sign Kenny Golladay, we have to make a decision. They're going to have to make a decision. Do they sign? If Devonta Smith is there at 7, do you take him or do you take a quarterback? Leave it in the comments below. What would you prefer? Any thoughts that you have, leave them in the comments. I try to read as much as possible, and I appreciate your time today on just listening to me talk and hearing my opinion on it. So leave yours in the comments below. I'll see you guys next week with another video.